All right. We're in Chapter 3, Section 501c3 Organizations. Other 501c3 organizations, if the information required by the organization described earlier should include any information described in the section charitable organization applying for the recognition for the exemption of the charitable organization, it must show that it's organized, operated with the purpose of the beneficial public interest. For example, the typical type of the organization are those organized by relief of the poor, distrust for the unprivileged, advance of the religion, advanced education, or science, direction of the maintenance of the building and the maintenance of work, lessening burdens of government, lessening of the neighborhood tension, and eliminate the prejudice, discrimination, defense of the human civil rights are secured by the law. Combating community deterioration, juvenile delinquency. The rest of the section contains the description and information provided with a certain specific organization. If this information, in addition, required with the inclusion described in Chapter 1 of the other statements requested on the Form 1023 and 1023 EZ, each of the following organization must submit with the following information described. Charitable organization supporting education submit information showing how an organization supports education, for example, that contributes to existing educational institution and endowments, professional chair contributes to the tour with the payment of paying teachers a salary, and contributes to educational institution enabling it to carry on research. Alright, scholarship. An organization will award the plans to award scholarship completing Schedule H of the Form 1023. Also submit the following criteria for selecting recipients, including the rules of eligibility, how and by whom the recipients will be selected. If awards are will and be directly individuals where information is required, assuring the students remain in school for award, and it will be made with the recipient of a particular class. For example, the student, children, and employees of the particular employer, wherever the preference of theirs will and be in accord with the applicant, reason for the parent's position, length of the employment, and salary, whether the condition of the award of the recipient must be upon the graduation set employment for the company, and whether an award will be continued even if the parents are paying employment, and a copy of the scholarship application for any of the vouchers of the literature describing the scholarship program. Alright, hospital. If organized to operate a charitable hospital, complete attached to the Section 1 of the Schedule C with the Form 1020. If the hospital transformed from the U with the priority ownership, the complete with the attachment. Schedule G for the Form 1023 had to be attached with the showing the file. The names, active courtesy staff of the members of the proprietary hospital, well as known with the name of the medical staff, members of the transfer of the profit ownership, the name of the doctor's doc, continue with the lease office space for the hospital office of the transfer non-profit ownership, the amount of the rent paid, the submit of all the appraisals showing the parent rent value of the rented space. Clinic. If the organized operator of the clinic attachment statement, the description of the facilities, services of the whom and services of the offer, such for the public and large for the specific group of the charge for the determined as such on the profit basis to cover the cost and the lease of the life of the cost. By whom administratively controlled, whether they admit whether any of the professional staff and those who perform all will perform clinical services also serve and who will serve in administrative capacity and will compensate with the pay with the professional staff and will be determined. Home for age. If you organize the operating home for age, compete in attachment Schedule F of the Form 1023 required attachment. Community Nursing Bureau. If provided with the nursing registered committee with the nursing bureau of the provided information showing the organization will be operated with the community project will receive the primary support with the public contribution and maintain the nonprofit registered qualified nursing personnel, including graduate nurses on the registered non-nursing school, graduate licensed attendants, practical nurses for the benefit of the hospital and the health agencies and doctors individual. Alright, organization providing loans. If you make them or will make a loan for charitable educational purposes, submitting the following information. Example of the circumstance under which such loans or will be made. The criteria of selection, including the rules of eligibility, how and whom the recipients are to be selected, manner of the repayment of the loan, security required, if any, interest charged, and if any, will may be payable. Copies of duplicated loan application, any brochure with the literature describing the loan program, public interest law forms, the organization with the form of litigate the public interest as opposed to providing legal services to poor with such area protection from the environment should be submitted with the following information. Litigation can be reasonably be said with the representative of the broad public interest rather than private one, whether the organization will accept the fees and services. The description of the case litigated will be litigated how they would benefit the public and generally. Wherever the policy of the program other than an organization responsible for the board of the committee representative of the public interest but neither control of the employee's person litigated with the behalf of the organization or by any organization itself and an organization described in the chapter, when the organization operated through the sharing with the office of space or otherwise in the way of creating identification with a confusion with a particular private law firm, whether there's an arrangement that provided with directly and indirectly deduction for the cost of litigation that is private benefit the donor. Or acceptance of the attorney fees. A non-profit public interest law firm can accept the attorney fee for the public interest case for the fees that are paid directly to the clients. The fees that are more than actual costs incurred with the case. The undertaking the representation organization can withdraw with the case because the litigation is unable to pay the fee. If the firms can accept the fees awarded with approved by the court with the administrative agency and pay for the opposing party of the firm, that does not use the likelihood probability of the fees awarded for the consideration selecting of the case. The fees awarded must be paid for the organization, not to the individual staff employees. Instead of the public interest of the law firm can reasonably compensate with a staff attorney, but only on a straight salary basis. Private attorneys whose services are retained with the firm in the staff of the particular case that can be compensated by the firm, but only on the fixed fee of the salary basis. The total amount of the attorney's fee for the court awarded from those who receive the clients must be in more than 450% total cost of the operation, organizational, legal functions calculated over 5 years. If any order carry out of the program, organizational violations applicable to the canons of the ethics and distributed of the judicial system engages in illegal action, and the organization will jeopardize the exemption. Our religious organization to determine whether the organization meets the religious purpose test sections 501c3. IRS maintains two basic guidelines. Particular religious beliefs the organization truly sinisterly held. The particular practice of the ritual associated with the organization religious belief or of creed and inerrant illegal contrary to clear of the defining public policy. Therefore, your group of the organization may not qualify to treat with exempt religious organization of the tax purpose if the action is contrary with the belief that the contrary with established clear defined public policy. If there is a clear showing with the belief that the doctrines are sincerely held by the those professionally serving them, the IRS won't question the religious nature of those beliefs. Churches. Although the church is integrated with auxiliary, the convention associated with the church is required to file the Form 1023 to be exempt from the federal income tax, receive the tax-deductible deduction. The organization may find it advantageous to be obtained recognition of the exemption. In the event that you should submit information showing the organization is the church, synagogue association, the convention of the church, a religious organization that is an integral part of the church that is engaged in carrying out the function of the church. In determining whether the immediately religious organization is also a church, the IRS does not accept every assertion of the organization of the church because the belief of the practices vary so widely that there is no single definition of the word church for tax purposes. The IRS considers the fact and circumstance of each of the organization apply with the church status. Convention, association of the church, an organization that is otherwise convention of the association of the church won't fail to qualify as a church merely because of the membership of the organization includes individuals as well as church because the individual has the volunteer voting rights of the organization. Integrated auxiliaries. Organization integrated auxiliary of the church as follows are true. The organization is described both in Section 501c and 3 and 509A1, 509A2, and 509A3. If affiliated with the church and convention of the association of the church, it is internally supported with an organization internally supported unless both of the following are true. If it authors a mission, goods, services, faculty, facilities for sale other than incidental base for the general public, except the goods and services facilities, nominal charge for the small part of the case. Normally gets 50% of the support for the combination of the government source for the public solicitation contribution receipts for the sales of the mission goods for the performance of the service of furnishing facilities activity in the unrelated trade of the business. Special rule of men's and women's organizations, seminars, missionary societies. Youth groups satisfied 1 and 2 for the showing earlier the integrated auxiliary church, even though that they are internally supported in order to organization, including the church and religious organization qualified for the tax exemption. No part of the list is necessary any individual, although individual is entitled to the charitable deduction contribution to the church assignment, similar transfer compensation, personal service charter. Church generally does not relieve the taxpayer federal income tax liability of the compensation, regardless of the motivation behind the transfer. Alright, scientific organization. You must show the organization research that will be carried by the public interest search of the scientific research considered to be public interest result of the research, including patents, consent, copyrights, process. The formulas are provided with available to the public on the non-discrimination basis of the research of the performance of the United States and state county with the municipal group. Municipal government is research to be carried on with one of the following: aiding with the scientific education of college, university students, obtaining scientific information published in treaties, theses, trade publications, or any other form of available to interest in public, discovering a cure for the disease, aiding community geographical area, they are attracting new industry for the community area, they being encouraged in the development of the retention of any of the industry community area. Scientific research exemption of the purpose does not include activity type of the ordinary incidental commercial and industrial operations such as the ordinary inspection, testing of the materials, product of the design, destruction of equipment and buildings, etc. If you engage and plan to engage research and submit all of the following is an explanation for the nature of the research, the brief description of the research project complete with presently being engaged in, how or by whom the research project is determined and selected, whether you have the contracted or sponsored research that becomes contemplated doing so. If so, the names of the past sponsors, the grantors, in terms of the grants or contracts, together with the copies are executed with the contract or grants. The disposition made with the result of the research, including whether the preference has been made, will be given as any organization individual, either as a result of the time of the release. 6. Who will retain ownership and control any of the patents, copyrights, processes, formulas resulting from your research. 7. A copy of the publication and other media showing the reports of search research activity. Only reports research activities conducted on behalf of the distinguished those of the creators and the members connected with the individual capacity should be submitted. Literary organization established to operate the bookstore and engage with the publishing activities and nature for the printing and publication and distribution of any of your own material that printed and published by others and distributed by you. Explain fully the nature of operation, including whether the materials are made with the general public, the type of the literature involved, and how the activities are related to the stated purpose. Or amateur athletic organization. There are two types of amateur athletic organizations that qualify for the tax-exempt status. The first type of the organization fosters the national, international amateur sports competition, but only none of the activities involved providing athletic facilities or equipment. The second type of the qualified amateur sport with the organization. The difference is they are qualified amateur sport organization and provide athletic facilities and equipment. Donation either to type of the amateur athletic organization deduct the charitable contribution for the donor federal income tax return. However, there's no deduction allowed if there is a direct benefit of the donor any of the other person of the organization. Qualified amateur sport organization. Organization will be qualified amateur sport organization if they organize and operate with exclusively the foster national and international amateur sport competition, primarily to conduct national and international competition sport support to develop amateur athletes in the competition. Organization membership can be local or regional nature. Prevention of cruelty to children and animals. Example of the activities must qualify the type of the organization exempt status, preventing children from working on the hazardous trades of the occupation, promoting health's highest standard for the care of laboratory animals, providing funds for the pet owners to have their pets sprayed with the neutered and prevent owner overbreeding. Alright, private foundations and public charities. It is important to determine the organization. Private foundation. Most organizations exempt with the income tax of the organization described in 501c3 are presumed to be private foundations unless notified with the IRS specified period with the time that they meet the requirements of Section 509A to be treated as other than a private foundation. This notice requirements apply with the Ministry Section 501c3 organization regardless when they are formed. Private foundation. Each of the organization qualifies the tax exempt as organized described in Section 501c3. Private foundation, unless it falls in one of the categories specifically excluded the definition of the term referred to in the Section 509A2, A2, A1, A2, A3, A4. And the effect of the definitions of these organizations in two classes, namely private foundation and public charities. Public charities are described later. Organization that falls in and excluded with the categories are generally those that have the broad public support and that actively function with a supporting relationship with those organizations. Organizations test the public safety as those are excluded. Application of the IRS. If the organization falls within one of the categories excluded from the definition, private foundation with the presumed the private foundation with some of the exemptions, unless in timely form, the 1023 with the IRS showing that it isn't private foundation. Application requirements apply with the organization regardless when it is organized. The only exemption with the requirements are these organizations are accepted. Requirements of filing Form 1023 discussed earlier in the organization not required for filing Form 1023. When to file the application. If it's an organization that has to file the application, they must do so within 25 months for the end of the month which is organized. If the organization newly applying for the recognition exemption of the organization described in Chapter A, Section 501c, the organization you wish to establish for the organization, public charity rather than private foundation, you must complete with the application lines of Part X2 of the Form 1023. However, the sentence 1382 about the change of Part 10, see application recognition for the exemption earlier chapter with more information. In determining the date of the corporation organized purposely applying with the recognition of the 501c3 staff, the IRS looked for the date the corporation came into existence under the law in the state which was incorporated, for example, where the state law provides that the existence of the corporation begins from the date with the articles of filed in a certain state. Office appropriate state, but office the corporation considers organized with the date not later non-substantive amendment enabling the instrument to change the date of the organization for the purpose of filing requirements. Application file date. The organization state of the private foundation will file with the application recognition exemption under the 27th month period will be treated the Section 501c3 organization private foundation only with the date that it files application rather than the date it was created first to become described in 501c3. The organization may obtain the retroactive exemption. However, they established with qualified to rely on the 27th month to the deadline. Alright, an organization that states publicly in support of charity when it files the application for the recognition exemption in the 27th month period that can be treated with the 501c3 or organization before the date is applicable, except as discussed above, the financial support received before the date used for purposes of determining whether the organization is publicly supported, however the organization can reasonably expect to meet the support requirements discussed later in public charities. When it applied for the tax-exempt status, will be classified in publicly supported charity of the non-private foundation. Excise tax of the private foundation there are in excess of the taxes on net investment income of the most domestic private foundations. See Chapter 5 with more information. Excess taxes. Alright, governing instrument. The draft foundation can be tax exempt with the contributions be the deductible charitable contributions unless the governing instrument contains the special provisions in addition that these apply to all organizations described in Section 501c3. Sample governing instrument. The following example the governing instrument provided with illustrates special character requirements applying with the private foundation. Draft A is the sample the provision of the articles of incorporation. Draft B is the trust indenture. Draft A. The corporation will distribute income of each of the tax year at the time of the manner that has become subject to the tax on undistributed income as opposed to the Section 492.42 of the Internal Revenue Code, corresponding Section 8 future Federal Tax Code. The corporation won't engage in any of the actions self-dealing defined in Section 4941D of the Internal Revenue Code, the corresponding Section 8 of the future Federal Tax Code. The corporation won't retain excess business holdings defined in Section 4943 Internal Revenue Code or corresponding Section 8 of future tax codes. The corporation won't make the investment of the manner of the subject of the tax under 4944 of the Internal Revenue Code of the corresponding section of the future Federal Tax Code. The corporation won't make taxable expenditures defined in Section 4945 of the Internal Revenue Code, corresponding Section 8 of the future Federal Tax Code. Alright, Draft B. Any other provision instrument notwithstanding the trustee of the distributed income of each of the tax year at the time of the man does not become subject to the tax on undistributed income imposed with the 4942 Internal Revenue Code with the corresponding section of the Federal Tax Code. Any other provision that instrument the notice notwithstanding the trustee engaged with the act of the self-dealing defined in Section 4941D of the Internal Revenue Code, the corresponding section of the future Federal Tax Code, and not retaining the excess business holdings defined in Section 4943 Internal Revenue Code with the corresponding section of the future Federal Tax Code, and not making the investment of the manner of the incurring of the tax liability under 4944 of the Internal Revenue Code, the corresponding section of any future Federal Tax Code, and not making taxable expenditures defined in Section 4945 of the Internal Revenue Code, the corresponding section of any of the future Federal Tax Codes. Effective with the state law, the private foundation governing the instrument with the considered to meet these charter with the requirements of valid provisions of state law that have been enacted required to act if the refraining of the act is so not subject to the foundation tax imposed prohibited transaction. And two, treat the required provisions that contain the foundation governing instrument. The IRS published a list of states within this type of law. The list of the revenue rule is 73 at 538 1975 1 CB 161 or later update. All right, that's the trust indentured. And governing instrument. Public charters, private foundation organization description section 501c3 unless falls into one of the categories specifically excluded for the definition term section 509a. List of four basic categories of exclusion. These categories are discussed in section 509a1, a2, a3, and a4 organization heading with the following introduction. Section 509a1 organization. If the organization falls in one of these categories, the private foundation or you should state and that is part 10 of the application for the recognition exemption in 1023. If the organization does not fall into one of these categories, the private foundation and the subject to the applicable rules and restrictions until it terminates the private foundation status. Some of the private foundations are qualified in private operation fund. These are discussed near the end of the chapter. Generally speaking, large classes of the organization excluded the Section 509A of the all organizations excluding under the Section 509A, 2, depending on the support of the test are used to assure the minimum percentage of the broad base of the public support on the organization term will support plan, thus following the discussion with only one-third of support tests qualifying the support publicly supported is later. It referred to the means of the following transaction normally must equal less than at least one-third. Alright, qualifying support over total support, including the items of support with the qualifying support, the numerator of the fraction, excluding the item support for the total support, the denominator of the fraction may decide whether the organization excluded for the definition of private foundation or thus a liability certain exercise tax. It's very important to classify the items in support correctly. Section 509A1 Organization. 509A1 Organization includes church, convention with association, church, educational organizations such as a school or college, hospital, medical resource organization operated with in conjunction with the hospital, endowed funds owed by the benefit of a certain state with a municipal college or university's government unit, publicity supported organization, church. The characteristic of church is discussed earlier in the chapter under the religious organization. Our educational organization is one of the primary functions that present with the formal instruction, but normally maintained with the regular faculty curriculum that normally has the regularly enrolled body of the pupil students and attended for the plan. Swear that regularly career of the additional activity terms include the installation such as primary, secondary, and preparatory of the high school and in the colleges of university, includes federal, state, and the other publicly supported schools. Otherwise, common with the definition does not include the other organization engaged in both education and non-educational activities, unless the latter are merely incidental with the educational activities. Recognized university incidental operates the museum sponsor the concert of the educational organization. However, the operation of the school and museum does not necessarily qualify as a museum as an educational organization. Exempt organization operates services students with one-to-one basis for the home, maintains a small center for the test and students determine need for the total tutoring, employers tutors on part-time basis. This instant educational organization for the purpose of the NOR exempt organization for the conduct of the internal internship program, the placing the college universal suit, and for the cooperative government agency educational organization. All right, hospital medical research organization. Hospital organization with the principal purpose of the function provided with the hospital medical care with either medical evaluation, education, medical research, rehabilitation institution, outpatient clinic, community mental health or drug treatment center may qualify as the hospital in principal purpose of the function of providing with the hospital medical care. Its accommodation organization quality is barred being skilled nursing facility. The organization will qualify as the hospital principal purpose of the function provided with the hospital medical care cooperation hospital service organization that meets requirements of Section 501E with the qualified as hospital exemption. The term hospital does not include the convalescent homes, the home for the children aged institutes where principal the purpose of the function to train with the handicapped individual purpose of the vocation. An organization that mainly provides the medical education, the medical research would consider the hospital unless it is also actively engaged in providing medical hospital care for the patients on premises and the facility on or inpatient, outpatient basis, an integral part of the medical education, medical research functions. All right, hospitals participate in providing sponsor organization. An organization can be treated with the organized operated with exclusive with the charitable purpose, even though it owns and operates a hospital that participates in provided sponsor organization, whether or not the provided sponsor organization is tax exempt for Section 501(c) purposes if the person for material financial interest of the provided sponsor organization is treated as a private shareholder individual with respect to the hospital. Requirements of the Section 501(c)(3) hospital under the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act enacted March 23, 2010, and added new requirements of the hospital organization must satisfy in order to discriminate, as described in Section 501(c)(3), as well as new reporting excise taxes. Requirements of charitable Section 501(c)(3) hospital. The 501s are with the data of the code of the ACA or the Affordable Care Act impose the requirements of Section 501(c)(3) organization operate one or more of the hospitals, facilities, hospital organizations. Each of the 501(c)(3) hospital organizations is required to meet the four general requirements of requirements on a facility by facility basis. Establish written financial assistance, emergency medical care policies, limited amount of the charge for the emergency, and medical necessary care. Individuals eligible to assist with under hospital FAPs make responsible the for determining whether the individual is eligible to assistance under the hospital FAP before engaging the extraordinary collection activities against the individual conduct and the community health needs assessment at least once every 3 years. The conduct of community health needs assessment is requirements effective the tax year beginning with March 23, 2012. The Affordable Care Act also added the new Section 4959, which imposed the excise tax for failure to meet the community health needs assessment requirements, added the reporting requirements under Section 6033B and related to 501R and 4959. Final regulation under Section 501R was issued December 10th. The IRS issued final regulations to provide comprehensive substantive guidance regarding the requirements for the charitable hospital organization added to the Patient Protection for the Affordable Care Act, Public Law 111 and 148, the 124 Statute 119, 210, Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act enacted in 501R but imposed additional requirements to hospital organizations that are and seek to be recognized as described in 501c3. The final regulations provided with the guidance on all of the requirements that were imposed with the 501R included the requirements conducted with the community health needs assessment, established written financial assistance policy, Policy relating to the emergency medical care limiting the charge of the foregone extraordinary collection actions until the responsible efforts have been made to determine whether the individual is eligible for the assistance under the financial hospital's financial assistance policy. The regulation also provides guidance for the consequently failing to meet the Section 501R of the requirements, including the $50,000 excess tax under Section 4959, failing to meet the comprehensive health need assessment requirements on associated reporting requirements. See regulatory regulation section 1501R1037 proposed regulations proceeding the regulation detail. Or correction, disclosure and procedure under Section 501R. The Notice 2015-21 contains the proposed revision procurement procedure for the provides the correction for the disclosure procedures under which the certain failures to meet the requirements of Section 501R will be excused for the purpose of the Section 501R1 and R2B revision procurement procedure 2015-21 later guidance. Medical research organization. A medical research organization must be directly engaged with the continuous activity conduct with medication research in conjunction with the hospital, and the actively must be organization, principle, or purpose function. Publicly supported. A hospital medical research organization wants additional classification with a publicly supported organization described later in the chapter. The qualification is publicly supported as specifically requests the classification. The organization must be established to meet the public support and requirements of Section 170B1A6. Endowment funds. Organization operated with the benefit of certain state with the municipal college universities are endowment funds. They were originally organized to operate exclusively to receive, hold, invest, and administrate property collectively. University make expenditure to benefit the college or university. The college and university must be an agency instrumental with the state with the public division, owned and operated state with public subdivision, agency instrumental with one or more states with the political subdivision. The phrase expenditure for the benefit of the college university includes the expenditure made with one or more than the normal function of the college university. These expenditures include those acquiring and maintaining real property compromising part of the campus area, the erecting with erecting college and university buildings, acquiring and maintaining equipment, the furnishing the youth in conjunction with the normal function of the college, university, library, school, ships, students, and loans. The organization must normally receive the substantial part of the support of the United States for any political subdivision, direct and indirect contribution for the general public, and from the contribution combination with the source of support that does not include the income to receive the exercise of the performance of the organization, charitable education, other purposes of the functional constitution, the basic example, basic exemption. In determining the amount of the support received by the organization for the contribution, with the property for the value of the contribution, the donor was of the reduction of the certain ordinary income of the capital gain property, fair market value of the property, and taken with the account. The indirect contribution. Example, the indirect contribution of the public and the receipt of the organization share of the process and proceed with the annual competition collection campaign of the community chest, the community fund, and United Fund. Government units. Government unit includes the state position of the United States, a political subdivision, either by the foregoing the United States, the District, or Columbia. Publicly supported organization. Organizations publicly supportive organization if one or more than normally receive the substantial part of the support of the government unit or from the public general public. Type of organization with the general qualifier are museums, history, arts, and music. Libraries, community centers to promote artists. The organization provided facility with the support operator with the symphony, orchestra, ballet, repertory, drama. Some of the other directives serve the general public. Organizations such as American Red Cross or the United Way, qualifying as a publicly supported. Alright, an organization qualifies as publicly supported is passed the one-third support test. If the failed test, it must qualify under the facts of the circumstances test. One-third support test. An organization will qualify as publicly supported normally but receive at least one-third of the total support government unit for the contribution made with the directly and indirectly with the general public from the competition for the source of the definition of support and see support later. Or the definition normally one-third support test. The organization will be considered the normally meeting of the one-third support test in the current tax year of the next year tax year if the current tax year of the fourth tax year immediately before the current tax year. Organization meets the one-third test support test on the aggregated basis. See the computation for period for public support, special computation for period new organization later in this discussion. Facts and circumstances test. The fact circumstances test. If the test of organization fails to meet one-third support test, the organization fails to meet one-third support test, it means to be treated with the publicly supported organization. They normally receive the substantial parts of the support of the government or units with the direct and indirect contribution with the general public from a combination of the sources. To qualify, the organization must meet the 10% of the support. 10% requirements of the attraction of the public support requirement. These requirements establish under all the facts and circumstances the organization normally receives substantial part of the support, general use of direct, indirect contribution from the public. Organization must also be in the nature of a publicly supported organization, taking account of the different factors. The 10% support requirement. The 10% support received in the organization governmental unit. The contribution made directly and indirectly general report. Public contribution for these sources. The substantially an organization treated the normally receiving substantial amount of the government public support unless the total amount of the government public support normally received at least 10% of the total support normally received by the organization. Or attraction of public support requirement. An organization must be organized to operate with demand to attract new and additional public and governmental support with a continuous base. An organization will meet the requirement to maintain the continuous bona fide the program solicitation funds for the general public community. The membership of the group is involved in carry the activities designed to attract the support of the governmental other charitable organizations described in Section 509A2, A1, determining whether the organization maintains the continuous bona fide program with the solicitation of the funds general public community consider the risk has been given whether the scope of the fundraising activity reasonable light of the charitable activities considered. Also will be given the act of the organization made in the early years' existence, limit the scope of the solicitation period, person who would be most likely to be provided some money sufficient and able to begin with the charitable activities expended to the solicitation program. Definition of the normal facts and circumstances test. Organization will normally meet the requirements of the facts and circumstances test of the current tax year for the next tax year if the current tax year and the fourth tax year immediately before the current tax year of the organization meet the 10% support the attraction public support requirements for the graded base for the satisfy the sufficient combination of the factors discussed later. The combination of factors of the organization normally meets but doesn't have to be the same for each 4 years as long as the sufficient combination of the factors exists and show compliance. Additional requirements of 5 public support factors. In addition to the requirements of the factors of the circumstance test, 5 public support factors will be considered to determine whether the organization publicly supported. However, the organization generally does not have to satisfy all the factors. The factors relevant to each of the case weight accorded to any one of them that may be offered different depending on the nature of the proposed the organization, length of the time that exists for the combination of the factors. The organization normally must meet doesn't have to be the same as each of the 4-year period as long as the sufficient combination of the factors exists show the organization publicly supported. Alright, 1. The percent of the financial support factor. When an organization normally receives at least 10% but less than 1/3 of the total support of the public from public or government, the percentage support received from those sources will be considered determining whether the organization is publicly supported. Percentage support of the public governmental increase the burden for the established for the publicly supported nature of the organization. Other factors decrease. With lower percentage, the greater the burden, and percent of the organization support for the general public, governmental source for the local, and those because the high percentage of the total support and investment income of the endowment fund for the organization will be treated and comply with the factor of the endowment was originally contributed by the government and with the general public. However, the endowment funds were originally contributed to these individuals, members of the families. In fact, these increased the burden of the organization, establishing the compliance with the other factors, facts, and per limit pertaining to the year before the 4-year tax or immediately before the current tax year also be considered. Alright, support factors. The organization normally received at least 10% with less than 1/3 of the total support of the public governmental source. The fact receiving the support of the governmental either directly and indirectly represent the number of the person rather receiving the most of all of the support the member of the single family considered to determine whether the organization public support and determination with represent the number of the person with the consideration given the type of the organization involved in length of the time existed, whether it limits the activities of a particular community, region, and the special field that can be expected to appeal with the limited number of the person. The fact pertaining to the year before the 4-year tax years immediately before the current tax year also be considered. A representative governing body factor. The fact that the organization for the governing body represents the broad interest of the public rather than the personal private interest of the limited number of the donors will consider determining whether the organization public is supported. The organization will meet the requirements of the governing body for the proposed public official for the area public capacity. The individual selected for the public officials acting with the public capacity, a person having the special knowledge expertise in the particular field of discipline in which the organization is operating. Community members selected, such elected with appointed officials, members of the clergy, educators, civil leaders, and others such representing broad cross-section of the views and interests of the community. Within the membership organization, the governing of the body shall include the individuals elected broadly based according to the organization governing instrument with bylaws. Availability of the public facility servicing factor. The fact that the organization generally provide the facility servicing directly for the benefit of the general public continuing. basis evidence for the organization publicly supported. Example: the museum library is open to the public. Open to the public. The symphony of organs given to the public. The conversation organization provided the educational services for the public through the distribution of educational materials. An old age home is provided for the domiciliary nursing services for the members of the general public. Or the facts of educational research institution regularly publishes scholarly study of the widely of the college, university, the member of the general public is evidence of the organization publicly supported. Similarly, the following factors evidence of the organization publicly supported. 1. The participation of the sponsor of the programs, the organization member of the public having special knowledge, expertise, public offices, official, civil, and community leaders maintain definite program of the organization for the accomplishment of the charitable work for the community, such as Islamic earns in developing employment opportunities, raising a significant part of the funding with its public charity for the governmental accounting agency, which is in some way held accountable as a condition for the grant and contract contributions. Or 5. The additional factors pertaining to the membership of the organization. Following additional factors determine whether the membership of the organization publicly supported. Whether the solicitation due to the paying of the number of members designed with enroll the substantial name of the person of the community, every particular profession, field of special interest, taking the action beside for the area, the nature of the organization activities. 2. When the membership when the membership due for the individual rather institutional members have then fixed the rate for the design to make the membership available to broad cross of the section interested in the public rather than restrict membership limited in number of persons. Whether the activities of the organization be likely to appeal to the person have the broad common interest for the purpose of section educational activities in case for the alumni association musical activities, case of symphony, act society, civil affairs, such as the case of the parent teacher association. Or a special rule, the fact that the organization normally meet one-third of the support tariff, the requirements of the current tax year must be unable to meet the requirements of the later tax year, won't itself prevent the organization from meeting the requirements of the fact that the circumstances test for the later tax year. Example X. Recognized by the organization described in Section 501c3, the basis for the support received during the tax years 2010, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2016 meets the one-third support for the tax year 2016. The current tax year of the X also meets the one-third support for the tax 2017 immediately succeeding the tax year and tax year 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. The aggregated X does not receive the least one-third of the support of the governmental using their referred in Section 170C1. The contribution made directly and indirectly to the general public. The combination of these sources of the X still meets the one-third support test for the tax year of the 2017 based on the aggregated support received the tax year of the 2016 and the tax year 2014, 2015, 2017, 2018. Aggregated does not receive the at least one-third of the support of the governmental unit referred in Section 170C1 with the contribution made directly and indirectly generated public for a combination of these sources. X does not meet the one-third support test tax year 2018. Based on aggregated support, other factors listed in the regulation section 170A, 9F, and 3A through E for tax years 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17. X meets the fact that the circumstance of the tax year of the 16, the tax 18, immediately succeeding the tax year of the X organization described in section 170B1A V6, the tax year of 2018, even though the X did not meet the one-third support testing that year. Special computation period for the new organization, computation period for the public support. If at the time of the applying tax exempt, the organization can reasonably expected to meet one-third of the support test for the fact of the circumstance test during the first 5-year tax year of the organization will qualify publicity support for the first 5 years. The organization will classify the public charity at least 5 years, regardless of the public support that actually received during this period, beginning with the organization 6th of the year. The organization qualified publicly supported meets the one-third of the support test on the fact of the curriculum circumstance test. The 6th year of the based on support advance received the second and the 6th tax year of the carryover the 5th tax year based on the support received with the 1st and the 5th tax year. Organization required to file in the Form 990 EZ with established that it meets the public support test each year with the Schedule A with the Form 990 EZ. A reasonable explanation of public support. The organization that support reasonably accepted to meet within third of the support test. The fact the circumstance test during the fiscal 5 years, one of the can show if the organization struck the current of the proposed program activity, the actual intent, and the initial intended method can responsibly be expected to extract the type of the broadly based support of the general public charities, the governmental units that are necessary to meet the public support and requirements discussed earlier in the qualifying as publicly supported. For example, organization-wide formed in January 2012, used the December 31st year after the November 9th, 2012, before the December 31st, 2012, organization-wide formed 1023 for the requesting recognition exemption as the organization described in Section 501c3, Section 170b1a4, a6 through 509 and 509a1. Its application organization-wide established that it can reasonably expect to meet the one-third support test. Organization-wide received the determination letter that the organization described in 501c3, Section 170b1a6 and 509A effective the date of formation. Organization-wide described in Section 171B1A, 6, and 509A that the first 5 tax years, the tax year depending December 31st, 2012 through December 31st, 2016, organization-wide can qualify the public charity beginning with the tax year extending with the December 31st, 2016. Organization-wide meets the one-third support test. Fact circumstances test for the tax year ending with the December 31st, 2013, December 31st, 2017 for the tax ending with the December 31st, 2012 and through the December 31st, 2016. Rulings determination public support status. The organization may request that the rulings determination later for the described in Section 170B1 and vote A6. The request is made with the 10th throwing for the recess for other time. The organization believes it's described in Section 170B1A6 for the IRS may revoke the Section 170B1A6 for the ruling determination later for the examination. The organization has not the requirements of the IRS may also revoke the Section 170B1A6 for the ruling determination later for the organization application with the ruling determination contained the material misstatement of fact. Reliance for the grantors and contributors. The general rule of the grantors and contributors may rely on the determining ruling letter of the organization described in Section 170B1A6 until the notice for the change of the organization made with the public. IRS publishes such note from time to time. International Revenue, the IRB, with the IRS Internal Revenue Bulletin. Grantor contribution can also be found internal information about the organization's exempt status under Section 501c3, except for the public charity of the private foundation. Exempt organization select check filed for the grantor and contributor can rely on the determination in the letter of the information for the select check for the grantor and contributor with the responsible to aware of the act of the failure act as a result of the organization law for the classification of public support organization. Alright, support. For the purpose of publicly supported organizations, the term supports are included, but it is not limited to gift grants, contribution, membership fees, not include net income of the unrelated business activities unless whether or not the activities are carried on regular trade of business, gross investment incomes, tax revenues levied by the benefit of the organization, either paid by the spent or by behalf of the organization, and the value of services facility furnished by the government and with the organization without charge, with except services of the facility generated furnished for the public without charge. Alright, the amounts aren't support. The term of the support does not include the amount received for the exercise of the performed the organization for the purpose of the function consisting of the base of the exemption. In general, these amounts include amounts received the activity with the conduct of the substantial relationship for the further exempted purpose of the function other than those deduction of income. Contribution of the service which the deduction is not allowed. These amounts exclude with both numerator denominator fraction of the denominator compliant with one-third support with the 10% support requirements of the following discussed in the exemption of the general rule. Alright, organizations depending on prime labor gross receipt and related activity, the organization will satisfy the one-third support with the 10% support requirement that they can receive almost support with the gross receipt with the received activity and investigation amount with the support of the governmental units without recovery the amounts referred to. And 3, the listing of the items can include support and the contribution made directly and indirectly general public. And then I'm going to skip the example. Membership fees are included with the term of the support and paid with the provided with the support organization rather than to buy admission and merchandise for the use of facilities. Support of governmental units. The purpose of the one-third support system and the 10% support requirement of the term support of government includes any of the amounts received of the governmental unit, including donation, the contribution beyond the received contracting for the government unit for the performance service of the form of the government research grant. However, these amounts are in support of the governmental unit. Those for purpose of the constituent amount received the exercise of the performance of the organization exempt functions. Any amount paid with the governmental unit and organized won't be treated with the receipt or exercise of the performance exempt. The function purpose of the payment primarily enables the organization to provide a service, maintain a facility to the direct benefit of the public, regardless of whether the part of the expense provision of the service of faculty is paid with the public rather than the service of the direct and immediate needs of the payroll payer, and that includes the amounts paid to maintain the library facilities that are open to public, amounts paid to the government programs, nursing homes, that agree with the healthcare and administrative service residents of these facilities, amounts paid to amounts paid with the child placement, the child guidance organization under the government program services on rendering the children in the community. Are these payments mainly to enable the recipient organization to provide services, maintain facilities to direct benefit the public with the receipt of the direct and immediate revenue for the payer for the further amount received the government under the circumstances in which the grant may would be treated with the grant and will be generally constitute the support of the government unit as such. The discussion of the grants later, Section 509A2 organization. Alright, Medicare and Medicaid payments. Medicare and Medicaid payments are received with the contract entitled with the state and the federal government units. However, the payments are made with the services already provided to eligible individuals rather than encourage and enable an organization to provide services to the public with individual payment now with the government actually in control of the ultimate receipt of these payments and selecting the health care of the organization. The result of these payments are in support of the government unit with Medicare payments, the growth of the receipt, the delivered exercise of the performance, except activities thereof that are not included with the term support. Support from the general public. The determination whether one-third of the support and the term 10% support, the requirements are met with including the compensation support with direct and indirect contribution from the general public. These include contribution to individual trust corporations, but only with the extent with the total contribution for the individual trust and the corporation during the current tax year, the 4-year period immediately before the current tax year, with their 2% origination of total support in the same period. Alright, thus contribution by the individual include and fill the denominator with the fraction u for the third with the support with the test for the 10% support requirement. However, the contribution will include the numerator with only with the extent that is in more than 2% of the denominator. If they applying for the 2% limit, allow the contribution made with the donor by any person with a similar special relationship with the donors concerned with the disqualified person discussed in the absence of the control of the disqualified person later are considered made with the one person. 2% limit does not apply to the support received with the government unit for the contribution other than publicly supported charities, except for the provided known grants for the public charities later. Or indirect contribution. The term indirect contribution to the general public includes contribution received by the organization from the organization that's publicly supported. Organization normally receives a substantial part of the support of the direct contribution to the general public exempt provided under the grants for the public charities. Next. Grants for public charity. The contribution received with the governmental unit of the publicly supported organization, including the church for the meets the requirements. The church that meets the requirements being publicly supported are subject to the 2% limit, only unless the contribution represents the amount expressly implied with the earmarked for the donor of the government unit of the public supported organization as being for the benefit of the particular organization claiming the publicly supported status. Skipping the examples. Unusual grants. The applying with the 2% limit to determine whether 1/3 of the support tested 10% of the support requirements met with the excluded contribution considered for the unusual grant with both numerator of the denominator of the appropriate percent of the support. Generally, usual grant. Unusual grants are substantial contribution bequest for the disinterested party for the contribution. Are attracted to the publicly supported nature of the organization. Unusually unexpected amount. They would adversely affect because of the size of the task organization normally being some publicly supported. The organization must otherwise meet the support test for the year without the benefit of the grant contribution. For the grant later of the meets with the requirements of the exclusion of the term of the grant instrument requires the funds to be paid with the recipient organization over the period of the years. The amount received by the organization each of the year under the term of the grant may exclude the year, however, no item of the grant or income that is defined in Section 509A of the organization may exclude under this rule. Alright, characteristics of an unusual grant. A grant contribution considered the unusual grant with the previous 3 factors apply with has all the following characteristics. These characteristics apply with the given the benefit of the advance ruling. The grantors, the contributor with the assurance they won't be considered reasonable. The substantial material change in the organization source of the support. Grant contribution is made with the person or other related with the creative with the organization with the substantial contributor with the organization before the grant is contribution. The grant contribution is made with the person and related to the person who the position of authority such as the foundation manager who has otherwise the ability to exercise control over the organization. Similar to the grant contribution is made with the person related to the person who has become the grant contribution obtained with the position of authority ability to otherwise exercise control over the organization. 3. The grant contribution in the form of the cash, readily marketable securities, and other sets with directly further the organization exempt the purpose of such a gift and painting to a museum, such as a gift to a painting with a museum. The donor organization has received the final renewal and determination letter classifying the public support of the organization. The organization actively engaged in this program activity furtherance of the exempt purpose. No matter restriction of the conditions have them imposed the grantor or the contributor upon the organization in connection with the grant contribution. If the grant contribution is intended for the operating expense rather than capital items, the terms and amount of the grant contribution expressly limited to 1 year's operating expense. Or determining request. Before any of the grant contribution made of the potential grant with the organization can request the determination whether the grant contribution exclusion with a unusable grant the request can be filled with the guarantee of the organization is made with the Form 8940 with the supporting documents describing the instruction, the Form 8940 with the appropriate use of the fee. The organization must submit the information necessary to make the determination, including information relating to the factors characteristics listed in preceding paragraph. The favorable determination issued. Determination can be relied upon with the grantor contributor with a particular contribution. The question issued with the determination will be the sole discretion of the IRS. Grants and contributions that fail to qualify for the exclusion with the effect of the waiver of the support and test apply with the additional requirement of the 5 public support factors earlier. Determination required the additional characteristics listed either of the characteristics of the unusual grant. The following factors may be considered by the IRS determination of the grant contribution unusual grant. Whether the contribution bequeath the transfer of the one where while living the bequeath for the given more favorable consideration than transfer with while living, whether before they received the contribution organization carried on the activity program the public solicitation except for the activities have been able to attract significant amount of public support, whether before the your contribution organization met 1/3 support without benefit of the exclusion with the unusual grant, whether the organization may be responsible to be expected to attract significant amount of public support after the contribution continue relying on the unusual grant funded the organization current operation expenses and unused as opposed to providing new endowment funds may be evidence that the organization can't reasonably expect to attract future support from the general public. 5. Whenever the organization represented with the governing body, comprehensive examples and alright, community trust. We'll skip the examples from here out until the end of the 3rd chapter. Alright.